Hey PSL, it's your Mayor Greg Orbeck with the one and only.
I'm Russ Blackburn, your city manager.
That's our chief executive right there. And we're here to talk to you about some pretty big news that happened this week. And it's probably something that you've heard about. And if you haven't, you're going to hear about it later this week. And that's Project Bourbon, which is a code name. And as we learned just yesterday officially, Russ, Project Bourbon is
City Electric. So it has nothing to do with Jack Daniels, nothing to do with anything to drink, but it's a great new business, an expansion of an existing business in Port St. Lucie.
And just to hit some of the highlights with this economic development project, we're talking about 271 jobs paying more than the city's current average. It's going to lift up the economy. And it's also what everyone wants in America and here in Florida, and of course your PSL, and that's manufacturing jobs. These are manufacturing jobs that are in a targeted industry that import money into our community. And so it's really important to stress that this is manufacturing. And it's a 400,000 square foot facility that's going to be built and really kickstart, I also think of it as a pioneering anchor, our Tradition Commerce Center. Russ likes to call it Tradition Commerce Center. I wish we'd call it Tradition Center for Commerce, just like our Tradition Center for Innovation. But what's important to know is that you're going to see a 400,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing facility just to the south of Kaiser, just to the south of the Orthopedic Center, just to the south of our soon-to-be opened hospital expansion at Tradition Hospital. Pretty exciting stuff, Russ.
It is exciting. So we were approached back in the summer by a site selector that helps businesses that want to expand or locate new facilities. And they indicated that they were looking at 3 sites for this business expansion. And they didn't tell us who it was. So they said they were looking at Dallas, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, and St. Lucie County. We had a suspicion that maybe this was a local business, but we didn't know for sure. And they called it Project Bourbon. They asked for what would the city do? How could we help this business to expand and locate in St. Lucie County? Ultimately, it was narrowed down to the Tradition Commerce Center in Port St. Lucie. So we went through this process where we provided them information about our community, the roads, all of the background data on the community, the demographics. Ultimately, we're very pleased that they have chosen to expand what we now know as City Electric in Port St. Lucie. So the interesting thing is this business is already in our community. Many of you may know this as Tamlike. They're located up off of Peacock in the city. They have 200,000 square feet and 222 employees. But they're going to double their size for a 400,000 square foot building, manufacturing. They're going to do real manufacturing, distribution, and they're also going to be doing their national training right here. So they'll be bringing people from all over the nation into Port St. Lucie to help them learn how their company excels and provide that information to their retail outlets and their other manufacturing and distribution outlets.
And so when you talk about the number of jobs, and they were already here, so there are about 5 buildings in the St. Lucie West Light Industrial area just across from Met Stadium where they're operating currently, and they've grown. I mean, they've grown from 30,000 square feet, obviously something much more than that. I think their existing buildings are roughly 200,000 square feet. But all 221 jobs plus the expansion were in play because they knew they wanted to consolidate and grow and get everyone into a state-of-the-art facility somewhere. As you pointed out, we went through this site selection process, and ultimately our community fundamentals, our existing relationship came into play. And I think that they could really envision being the anchor in the Tradition Commerce Park and knowing that Kaiser's there and the hospital's there and everything that's happening and will happen in what we've called our I-95 jobs corridor. I think that was a big part of them wanting to be home. They wanted to stay home. Now, we did provide an economic development incentive package, and I just want to hit this squarely on the head. in Port St. Lucie, when you say economic development incentives, it can be a pejorative because we've had experiences with the digital domains and the VGTI. And what I want the people at home to know, or wherever they may be, is that this is completely different. It's really important to draw a hard compare and contrast. There really is a striking contrast here. So if you would look at digital domain and VGTI, the state provided upfront cash incentives. The city of Port St. Lucie, the reason why we're on the hook as taxpayers is because we did what's called a covenant to budget and appropriate. What you need to know about that is we basically guaranteed their loans on these speculative businesses at the end of the day. And the worst case scenarios was if they failed, we were stuck with the buildings and the debt on the buildings for construction. So that the worst case did happen, and that's what happened to us. We're not putting anything out of pocket, or we're not providing any guarantees on Project Bourbon, aka City Electric. We're providing property tax abatement, which you, the voters, authorized by election. And before I get to that, let's remember that the 5 buildings that currently exist are going to continue to be on the tax roll. So we will forego some property taxes on a brand new $40 million, 400,000 square foot facility. So we're not coming out of pocket. We're just not going to get paid on those for 100% for 5 years and then diminishing over a 10-year period. But that was approved by the voters. It's pretty standard, and it's nothing out of pocket. The other big thing that we're doing is we're building a loop road. But here's the thing, Port St. Lucie, we're not building the loop road with city tax dollars. We're using developer dollars because as part of the Southwest annexation area, that big area tradition and out west that goes all the way out to those big power lines, developers provided cash for improvements. And we're proposing to use $1 million from that developer funded account to build a public road. And this is old school classic economic development. The Economic Development Administration and countless other organizations have built roads. And if you think that's a subsidy, just look at your federal highway system. I mean, this is bread and butter stuff for us.
So, Mr. Mayor, one of the things you've brought up is this Tradition Economic Development Fund. It is not money out of your general fund. It is not money out of our taxes. So the developers, at least one of those was GL Homes, which we know has just really started breaking ground on their models. When they received approval of their development of regional impact, they provided money to this fund with the idea that there would need to be jobs in the Tradition area to support all the houses that were proposed. So there's approximately $3 million in this fund now. It's been sitting there waiting on an opportunity to grow jobs in the Tradition area. So the money cannot be used anywhere else in the city. It can only be used in the Tradition area. And it's being used for public infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, road improvements, the kind of things that we all benefit from and other commercial development will benefit from to help certainly City Electric be able to realize their dream, but also other commercial developments in this area will be able to use the same infrastructure. Again, it is not out of our city taxes. It's not out of our general fund. It's out of this very specific Tradition Job Creation Fund that was, the monies for it were provided by the developers in the Tradition area.
And so it's important to look at things worst case scenario, especially given our history. Worst case scenario, if for whatever reason City Electric would build the building, by the way, they're paying for it. We're not signing on the loan, they're investing $40 million. What do you see as the worst case scenario?
Well, we want City Electric to succeed and thrive in our community, but they're going to build a building that's a physical asset. So that asset, whether City Electric occupies it or another entity, is going to be on our tax roll. What I've seen in my experience is when you have a building, you will eventually fill that building back up with another job creator. And so the road will be here, will be available to other entities in the community as well as the public. The building will be on the tax roll and it will be taxed. If they should cease operation, then it'll go on the tax roll as a normal building without any abatement.
And that's really the beauty of what I call economic development done right. I think there's an argument to be made that previously the cities and this city and others have tried to buy love, but that's not the case here. We're not coming out of pocket, and it's really contingent upon them delivering what they say they're going to deliver. And one of the other things that's going to happen is that this loop road is going to get punched in here. At the end of the day, we're creating 6 pads. So we've been very fortunate to have Tradition Hospital be the anchor of the Tradition Center for Innovation. And a lot of development has sprung up around it. We just approved another 70,000 square feet of medical office space. There's an orthopedic surgery center currently under construction. But we've been waiting for more than a decade for the manufacturing and the other job creators to really fill in. And you have to break the ice. City Electric is our icebreaker, and they're coming with 5 other pads. So the worst case scenario is that we create light industrial, a business park on I-95 that has a 400,000 square foot building that's getting taxed and paying its taxes. So it's really apples and oranges compared to some other deals of the past, and I think that's the point. I mean, I think that's one of the points that we have to make. But I guess the points at the end of the day is 271 jobs, paying more than our current average wage, a $40 million investment, 400,000 square foot manufacturing facility. It's going to be one of the largest buildings in Port St. Lucie, right there in your jobs corridor, PSL. So do you want to take some questions? What do you think?
All right. So we do have some questions coming in through Facebook. Basically, people are wondering what does City Electric, what do they make?
Thank you. So we have a lot of lights in here. We have a lot of panels on our electric fixtures. There's boxes in the wall where wires join. They make all of those products and much, much more, but they're actually the 8th largest manufacturer of these type of electrical supplies, and especially through their TanLight brand, the lighting that you'll see in your ceiling, Russ.
Yeah. So it's an interesting company, started in England. They came here in 1983, I think, or maybe 93, with 6 employees, and they've grown to their 200,000 square foot, 221 employee presence now in Port St. Lucie. But what's interesting about them is they don't import their products from China and other places. They actually make their electric fixtures right here in Port St. Lucie, and they ship those fixtures out to their wholesale, open to the public outlets around the nation. So they have 11 stores in Miami. So the fixtures that they manufacture, where they start with a blank piece of aluminum, blank wire, just wire, electric wire, and it goes out the door in a box as a light fixture. Well, that's the kind of manufacturing that every city wants to see, because they're good, stable jobs that provide people with skills and opportunity to apply those skills and add value in the community. And so they manufacture it here, they sell the light fixtures, the various components, in their own wholesale, open to the public facility called City Electric.
And they, like you said, they have been in Port St. Lucie. How long have they been in here?
I believe it was 93.
Okay.
I believe it's 93.
So they've been around them.
Yeah, they've been here a
many
while.
years. Okay.
When you're doing a live improv show like this, it's not scripted. So another, I think, important point that we didn't cover in the beginning is that difference between being a going concern, very successful, 8th largest in its market segment, versus some of those deals of the past where it was completely speculative. They were startups. They were high-risk startups, especially in hindsight. This is really the other end of the spectrum. And if you would go to even an existing facility, you're going to see rolls of aluminum and metal where they use cutters and presses to turn it into those fluorescent light fixtures that are in your ceiling, and hundreds of other products. And not only are they Port St. Lucie residents and just everyday Americans and Port St. Lucie residents that can find a job like that and do the work, they have the opportunity for advancement. I mean, as you go through manufacturing, we have a shortage of high-skilled labor. So if this is the field for you, the sky's the limit on what you can do and what kind of professional growth you can have.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned wages. the average wage in Port St. Lucie is around $36,000 a year. So City Electric's average wage will be $43,000 a year plus a very good benefit package. And I had the opportunity of been through the plants, because there are 5 different buildings 2 times, and I've met some of the people who work there, and they are folks who live in our city, whose families play soccer with your kids, who buy things at the stores and go out to eat in Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County. And so, they're us. This is our community. These are very good jobs. There's a skill level that's required, which we're very proud that people in our community can fill those needs. And they're part of something bigger in this $1 billion plus company that has sales all over the world.
What else you got, sir?
Okay, what has the city done to safeguard itself so this is not the same scenario?
Sure, and it's really not. We can't drive that home enough. So VGTI, the reason why we're on the hook for VGTI is because they floated bonds, which the city provided a covenant to budget and appropriate for. We essentially guaranteed their loan, which they got through bonds. And so when they defaulted, we were stuck making the payments. We can't do that anymore. City Council, a couple of years ago already, changed the law, changed our regulations. We can't do that type of economic development anymore. So, and it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing with digital domain. Again, the reason why we were on the hook is because we had a covenant to budget and appropriate, and a lot more went into those buildings than they can be sold for now, especially in the in the market. So that difference that we're on the hook for is only because we guaranteed the bonds. We're not guaranteeing anything here. So at the end of the day, and that's why I wanted Russ to, from a chief executive's point of view, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, the worst case scenario is that we use developer dollars to build a road that creates 6 sites for job creation in the jobs corridor. That's the downside. And I mean, you don't have to go any further than our very own city to see LTC Ranch, where once upon a time the city worked with the Economic Development Administration to put in a loop road that resulted in several warehouse and economic development type pads, light industrial pads. Whenever I say industrial, I don't want people thinking smokestacks and belching smoke into our environment. We're talking about light industrial, as Russ mentioned before, logistics, distribution, and those type of uses.
You have a Google map behind you.
We
do you mind showing our viewers where this could be located? Where we're looking here?
All right, so this is what we now call Florida Center for Biosciences. We don't like to use VGTI anymore. This is where the Orthopedic Surgery Center is currently under construction. This is the Kaiser building. And the loop road, I believe, makes a loop like that, if I'm not mistaken, Russ. And we have City Electric Project Bourbon site right here. It'll be on the frontage, it'll be on the loop road, and it'll have that shingle right there on I-95. You just can't. I mean, one of the things that's great about Port St. Lucie is the potential. And, I dare you to find a place that has 3 miles of ready-to-build area between 2 fully improved interchanges in one of the fastest growing communities in one of the fastest growing states in a low tax state. So it's really part of our upside. And I think that's what's important to recognize. In response to the VGTIs of the world, the taxpayers and everyone here was clear we can't do that anymore. So what we decided is that we're going to grow the economy by making smart investments in our infrastructure. We're not going to chase people with money. We're going to rely on our fundamentals and what makes our community special and relationships. And we're going to make smart investments in infrastructure. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And in fact, we're not even using your money, taxpayer money, to build the road. We're using developer money. And the only thing that we are foregoing is some taxes on the new building and some impact fees that may have otherwise been paid. But guess what? If there's not a brand new $40 million, 400,000 square foot facility, nothing's getting paid anyways. And then this really kickstarts the rest of the project where we have 5 more pads that we can now put out there and let Enterprise Florida know and some of our other partners know that, hey, we're pad ready in PSL because we didn't have this kind of space available.
Okay. Another quick question, and we'll start wrapping it up. It was originally known as Project Bourbon. People are curious about that name and why. Why do you have to keep these code name? Why do you have to use a code name?
Why did you name it Project Bourbon?
I didn't name it Project Bourbon, but it is kind of fun because we've had that question a lot.
I thought it was a distillery when you first presented to me. That's all the rage.
Yeah. So when industries and businesses want to relocate, they want to expand, they have existing suppliers, existing employees that they can have anxiety really fast. Is my company closing? Are we going to move somewhere? How's it going to impact my family? Very real issue for the businesses. So they demand a level of anonymity, until they reach a point. The point we reached Monday, where they said, you can use our name. We are going to be here subject to these few conditions. And so let's take Tamlite as an example. They have 221 employees, their families, they've got, relatives, they're part of our community, they go to our churches. And so if you were to put out there, Tamlite is looking at potentially relocating to Dallas, Charlotte, or staying in Port St. Lucie. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst created for the employees, for their suppliers, for everybody involved, and frankly for us as the city that is the host to that company. And so it's a very traditional thing that businesses who are looking to relocate, looking to grow, will ask that their identity not be revealed until they've made a business decision, where they want to locate. And so late Friday, we were told by City Center that you can use our name. They provided a letter of intent to the city describing what they want to do. Yesterday at the council meeting was really the first real public unveiling that it is City Electric, and as such, we now can talk about them. But before that, we had a project, and you asked me earlier about a project called Holy Grail that we were looking at. They came through Enterprise Florida. I still don't know what it was or who they are. It was a neat name, engenders a lot of curiosity, but it's all to protect the business, their employees, and so they're the ones that are making the investment. So they want to make sure that they're not harmed in the process.
I get another take on that also. So as public officials in Florida especially, we're used to every record we create is public record and is accessible. As an elected official, I can't have a meeting with a member of my board without it being advertised and open to the public. So we take these things for granted. As it turns out, private entities, corporations, successful businesses, they don't want to reveal trade secrets, proprietary information, financials. They don't want to share that with the world unless they have to. So until you get to the decision point of this is going forward, we can't blame them for wanting to keep their private information private. I mean, they are a private corporation. There's a fundamental difference. Now, once you start having the public incentives in play and foregoing tax dollars, of course, it's fair for the information and to be able to kick the tires and to make sure we have professional analysis. And I didn't bring it. It's not on my person, but certainly the EDC, as part of their responsibilities and duties to the city, did the economic development analysis. I mean, we know how much payroll there's going to be, how much it's going to cycle through the community. We're talking an economic impact, I think, measured in tens of millions of dollars. Do you have any specific information on that?
Exact number.
We can definitely provide some infographics on the website. I'm sure this is going to be one of many times that we talk about this, but it's far in excess. So I think you make the business case that when you do get to the decision point that we're going to receive a very favorable, what we call return on investment. And that's another little stat that we could put out there for the people, is let them know what the return on investment is going to be. But even if you look at it as developer dollars and foregoing some taxes in the future that we wouldn't otherwise have, I think we're going to see that it's a very large return on investment.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just wrap this up. Give us the big picture. Why is this a great thing for our city in general?
271 jobs paying more than the average. So we all want prosperity. Look, there's over 19,000 cities in the United States. There's over 400 cities in Florida. Every single one of those cities wants their community to prosper. And prosper, there's a lot of different definitions, but at the end of the day, you have to have enough money to pay for what you need and some of the things that you want. And every single one of those cities wants it. Most of them want to get there through job creation, what we call economic development. And a majority of them have some type of economic development program, or at least a large number of them. We certainly fall into that category. We've been talking about economic development for a long time in PSL, and this is the third in a string of winning economic development activities. You know, a lot of people bring up mistakes that are actually 10 years old, in some cases 12 years old at this point. But if we want to be true to history, not only have we changed the law so that that can't happen, we've had things like expert shutters, which is another local business that started in a garage. We have had teleperformance, where we actually did a real estate transaction where we made a 7-figure profit, and then created the opportunity for 1,400 jobs. We saw A&G Concrete Pools go into LTC Ranch. So this is actually the fourth in a string of just solid economic development where we grow the local economy. So to get to that more prosperous city, we need to, whether you want to think of it as a staircase that we're going step by step, we're climbing a ladder rung by rung. The important thing is we got to keep adding jobs that pay more than our existing average wage. I mean, that's how we do it. That's how we become more prosperous. This does that. And I mean, we couldn't be happier.
It's really a very positive event for the city. You know, we could have lost 221 existing jobs. And that was really the scenario that was facing us as a city, is the site selector was doing a national competition, looking at, and had narrowed it down to Dallas, Charlotte, and Port St. Lucie. So it was ours for the keeping and the win, or ours to lose. And so we worked very hard, the council was working very hard to make sure that not only do we retain the existing 221 jobs, but they're committed to grow at least 50 more jobs and to build a 400,000 square foot building. So it's a win-win for our community. The investments that the city is making, they're bricks and mortar investments. They're water lines, their sewer lines will help on the road. You know, we're not going to guarantee their loans. We're not going to guarantee their success, but we're going to help to facilitate the business being successful.
Well, thank you both very much for providing this information for residents.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
PSL. That's
Right.
no more questions in that?
Well, we do. If you have one,
Yeah.
one just snuck in. When can we expect the construction to start? Do we know that yet?
So the company intends to start construction in the winter of 2018, and they want to be complete with their construction in 12 months. It's an aggressive
Well, there you
schedule.
go. All right, you got that last question in. Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.